Welcome everyone back to the Travel Coach Network podcast. It is I, Sahara Rose DeVore, the founder of the Travel Coach Network and the creator and instructor of the Travel Coach Certification Program. Today we have Katrina. I am so excited to have you here with us today. Katrina McGhee. She is a career break and sabbatical coach, a certified life coach with an MBA, whose signature Take the Break program helps mid-career women create happier, more fulfilling lives by designing bold and transformational career breaks. Informed by her own intrepid and successful 20-month career break to travel the world, Katrina's RSVP framework guides her clients as they create their life-altering career break experiences. On their time off, her 50-plus clients have traveled the world, launched businesses, changed careers, and more. Katrina is an enthusiastic world traveler and digital nomad. Her advice on career breaks, money, and travel has been shared across various outlets, including Forbes, Smarter Travel, Thrive Global, and Yahoo. Katrina, welcome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Sarah.
Yeah, absolutely. I am so excited to dive into this conversation because I see so much value in what you do. But first, before we do that, tell us, where did your love for travel even begin from?
Yeah, I sometimes wonder if it was imprinted on my soul because it's been there since forever. But I think one of the pivotal things for me was growing up as a biracial kid in rural West Virginia. And I think, I was always acutely aware that I didn't fit in. And I think there was this desire to go see the world. Like instead of having a fear of leaving my bubble, it was more like, I want to go see what's out there. And because I didn't feel like I belonged, it almost empowered me to be curious about other places. And maybe there was a place that I belonged to, but I think it created this sort of wanderlust in me that just continued to grow, honestly, like every year. And I knew like from a very early age that I wanted to see the world.
That's amazing. I know that a lot of people can really relate and connect with that, with your background and your story, because I hear so often from travelers saying, they were inspired to travel because they also didn't feel like they fit in their environment they were in, and they wanted to find a place where they felt more accepted and understood. And that's really such a powerful thing that travel can provide us with. But as I read in the intro there that you took a 20-month career break, what sparked that?
Yes. Oh my goodness. So, I remember being like 15 years old and I was working in my mom's nursing home. My mom was a social service worker at a nursing home, and I was doing like the midnight shift over the summer at the laundry. And I remember my break would be at like 2 a.m. and I would sit there with this coffee and just fantasize about seeing the world and about being some magical place that was not in the middle of like a nursing home laundromat. And I would listen to like Tom Petty's very like Into the Great Wide Open, and I would just have this visualization. But, as I became an adult and I got, my great first corporate career as an actuary, and, I'm getting my MBA and I'm doing all these like right and successful things, I buried that desire really deep down inside of me. And I remember reading Elizabeth Gilbert's Eat, Pray, Love, and having this moment of awareness that adults could actually quit their jobs to do something like travel just because they want to. And I think subconsciously, I thought my time had passed. Like if I was going to do that, I had to do it in college. I had to take like that gap, like either a gap year or study abroad or something like that. So it just was like that dream has died. And reading that book, I realized that dream is actually always available to me. And it wasn't the right time. I was in the middle of my MBA program, and that just like wasn't going to drop out of the program. But that basically lit my heart on fire to know this is something I can actually still do. And so through all of that, awareness and working with my own life coach in 2011, when I felt very stuck in my corporate career, I left and took this 20-month break. It became very apparent to me that it was time to go out and live this dream.
That's so inspiring because I know there's so many people out there in this world who often say, I would do that, but, my time has passed, like what you thought too. Or, I wish, had I been, 20 years, 20 years old again, I would do this. But it's so true that you can create anything out of your life at that time that you have left, right? Like you can really sculpt the life that you dream of, and it really comes down to the decisions that you make. But it really is, what are some pieces of advice that you would give travelers who maybe are sitting on that fence of, where you were back then, where it's like, well, if I did that, I had to have been younger, or, I have this career now, everything, all those limiting beliefs. What are some tips that you would give them, or what went through your head?
Yeah, absolutely. I think on a base level, we are so much more powerful than we think. But a lot of times we are spending that power, that energy, that creativity, that resourcefulness on just trying to get by, right? On trying to make everybody else happy, on trying to not rock the boat, on trying to be successful. But, I think really tapping into and reflecting on all of the things you've created can be really powerful to realize I'm actually doing stuff. It's just, I'm not doing the stuff that is fulfilling. I'm not putting that energy into something that, lights me up or really leads to the life that I want to live. But even recognizing your achievements, as much as they might be misaligned, can show you the power that you're harnessing, right? The power that you have. But also, I would offer, for me, it was this awareness that I think I was about 30 years old, but I realized that my life had sort of zoomed by from college. And I realized I'm going to blink my eyes and it's going to be like another few decades and I'm going to be retiring. And I'm going to wonder, where was this creative, adventurous girl that like I knew I had inside of me when I was a teenager? I saw her, she was creative, she was fun, she was adventurous. Where did she go? And I wanted to answer that question. I wanted to live a life that I felt proud of. And so I think, really being aware of how precious and not guaranteed time can also be really powerful. But so the last thing is like surround yourself with people who are doing amazing things that are similar to what you want to do. That was something for me, right? Hearing other people's stories, whether it was in a book, now we have podcasts and all kinds of things, that you can go find sources of inspiration. But the more we normalize this thing that we want, the less crazy it starts to feel. And the more creative our brain starts to get about how can I do my version of this? How can I make this happen for me?
Yeah, I mean, I know that those listening to this podcast are going to resonate with that and see themselves in a lot of what you just said, because it's so common, and it's so easy to have every day go by, day after day after day, and before we know it, we're years from now, and that's when we kick ourselves and we're like, oh, I wish I'd done this. I had heard that so much when I was traveling, when I was just a backpacker, and I would meet like a much older couple who didn't start traveling until they were retired, which was wonderful. But I remember them always saying, if I could go back in time, I'd do what you were doing. And I always remembered thinking, I'm going to learn from every person that I meet, because I think that's so important in life. Like when someone who's been there, done that, or had experience, or can tell you something, if you have that opportunity or that time in life, learn from it, and, you know, live in a way that you're not that person saying, I wish that I had done X, Y, and Z with my life, right? So let's talk more about what you do in your business as a career break and sabbatical coach. That's such a hot topic, especially now. But tell people, like, what is it that you actually do and why did you decide to help others?
Yeah. Okay. So for me on this break, as we talked about this 20-month break, I was just 3 years into a second career when I took this break. And so there was a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty and a lot of doubt about what would I be coming back to and would I be able to find a job? Would anyone want to hire me? And what I discovered in this process is because of how I very intentionally and thoughtfully, created this break. I had been working with a life coach before to get really clear on what I wanted in my life. I landed 5 job offers in just 5 weeks when I returned from this break. And that blew my mind. And one of these jobs was like a dream job in my old industry. Another job was a promotion with a big raise. I got an offer to be a Delta flight attendant. Like there were so many possibilities open to me after this experience that I realized I want to give this to other people. I want other people to experience this kind of freedom of choice, freedom of alignment and fulfillment, and just the freedom to pursue your passions and your interests. And, I went about paying off my debt. So I still had some MBA loan debt, I think about 42,000. So I paid that off, and I paid it off with within 2 years. And as it started to get close to the end, I decided to get certified as a life coach. And I decided to start helping people do this and actually putting it into practice. And so, what I do now, I would say, is a mix of life coaching and career break consulting. I kind of merge the two together. And I really try to help people get clear on, why am I in this place where I so desperately need a break? And I feel like maybe my life is not headed in the direction I want. But then also, how do I create this experience to get back on track? But not just back on track, but to reconnect to who I am, what makes me happy, and to come out of this experience as a different version of myself that feels more empowered, that has had this amazing break, that has probably done my own version of amazing travels, but been changed in a forever kind of way. So that when I look back at me pre-break, I don't even recognize that version of myself, right?
Yeah, what do you think it is about travel or taking this break and that's so powerful that could lead to outcomes like gaining new opportunities and feeling recharged, feeling inspired, feeling forever changed? What is it during that break that do you believe in that could help achieve this?
Yeah. So, I think there's an answer within an answer. So, on a bigger scale, right, in regards to the break itself, we're never really stopping to ask ourselves, like, what do I need? And we're not creating the space to actually give ourselves that thing, right? So we might know, oh, I really need some rest, or I really need a vacation, or I really need some time off, or I really need to go reconnect with my family. I miss them dearly. And, they're like getting older and I wish, right? But we're not actually clearing the table of all the things and then thoughtfully just putting the things that we really want and that really matter back on the table, like one at a time. And so I think this break is a time for you to have to step way outside your comfort zone, right? There's so much about our self-identity that's wrapped up in our work or staying on the hamster wheel or like achieving and doing. And so I think it causes you to find value in yourself as a human. Like you have to really feel like you are worth this time to prioritize yourself and your own self-care, to take this time. And so you clear off all the stuff and then you thoughtfully get to put it back on. And I think that experience of, it's safe to stop running. It's safe to stop achieving and striving in all the external ways. It's safe to put my attention on me and take care of me. And I deserve it. And I'm actually a better person for it. I think that's transformational. And I think feeling freedom and really being able to step into the power that we have over our own lives can absolutely change the way our brain thinks about life and ourselves forever. And then within that, my clients have all kinds of versions of a career break. My fundamental belief is that it looks different for everyone, and not everybody needs to do a trip around the world like I did. But I think travel is a really potent component of a career break. And I would say probably 90% of my clients have some aspect of travel involved with it. And that's because, in my opinion, travel, one of the biggest gifts it gives is absolute presence. When you are outside of your comfort zone, when, you have to really be fully present to the languages, to the nuances, to the body, like to the sign, like the signs and the body language and all the things to process where you are, and everything is new and everything is exciting. And maybe it's a little bit scary. It makes you really present to the moment, to the people, to your life, right? You're not trapped in the automation of life, running the routines, doing the admin stuff, going to the post office to check the mail and coming back and dusting your house and like all the things we get lost in that can sort of create this autopilot for us. Like it makes you fully present in your life. And I think that's a very magical, potent experience, to just be that present and to really see yourself, and then to see yourself in all these other environments and get to know parts of yourself that you didn't know. Like, who am I when I'm lost on public transit and I have to ask someone for help? Who am I when I'm trying these foods that I maybe wouldn't have ever thought I would like, but now I love them and I realize I'm an adventurous eater, right? So it's just discovering parts of yourself. And I think it all starts with this absolute presence in the moment that our regular lives don't require of us oftentimes.
Yeah, it really does shine a light on the power that travel has, right? I mean, I know when I was becoming a wellness travel coach and I spent time doing a lot of research on like the mental, physical, emotional, spiritual wellness benefits of travel and even more intellectual, professional as well. And not only do we hear what travelers talk about of why they love travel and what it does for them, and that's very anecdotal. It's very, personal and opinion based. But when there's research out there that really strengthens it and really solidifies that just how impactful travel can be on people. So exactly that, growing your social skills. I know when I was a backpacker and I would come back home, I would say, I really don't know who that girl is. Like, how did she do it? Right. And it's like you gain confidence. And that's what many of my travel coaches in the Travel Coach Network, when I ask, what do you want to help your clients get? I always hear, I want them to become more confident. I want them to become more independent. And when just like you were saying, you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to get out of your daily routine in order to see your full potential in life, right? And that's what a break and a career break and a break from your daily routine can really do. You talked about some examples of, or how different every client that you work with outcome or definition of a career break. Can you give some examples of what kind of career breaks or sabbaticals people have taken, just so our audience has a better scope of this?
Yeah. Absolutely. There is a wide range. So I have a client, a past client, Misha, who really in the beginning was really confused about what to do because she wanted to take this break, but she was like, I'll have all this time off. And she was in a couple of groups where people were doing all kinds of exciting and interesting things like, relocating to Mexico and traveling here and traveling there. And she was getting caught on other people's dreams. And so in the work we did together, we uncovered that her ideal break was actually, she wanted to do some fun stuff like go to Hawaii and take surf lessons. But a big part of her break was relocating from Texas, where she lived, I think, her whole life and her family still lived, to Seattle, which was this magical place she, she'd never quite made the move to, but she'd always dreamed about moving there and just felt somehow aligned energetically to that place. And so the relocation was a huge part of her break, making friends, having activities, like getting that social, creating like this social network of people that she could hang out with. And it was the most amazing thing. She ended up starting a third career there and has this amazing friend group. I see her pop up on my Instagram stories with like all these amazing things she's doing. I've had other clients, like one of my clients, Juliana, she had this dream of traveling through Europe and just kind of winging it as she went. And so she took a trip there for almost 3 months, came back for a month and was like, oh my gosh, I don't feel like I'm done. And so she actually is back in Europe right now, doing another leg through other countries. But she had this dream of seeing, I think it was somewhere between 11 and 14 new countries, in the first 6 months, and she's making that happen. Meanwhile, I've had other clients that really, are going through something where they need some type of deep healing. And one of my clients, Karen, she discovered she has Lyme's disease. And she learned that because of the break, because of the time that she was able to clear out to answer the questions. And so she has aspirations to travel towards the end of her break. But for right now, she's really gotten into functional medicine and is actually, I think she's thinking about certifying in it. It's kind of changing the trajectory of her career because she wants to help other people the way that she was helped. And so, there's everything from learning, starting new businesses, to taking wild adventures, to, just having sort of this really amazing experience where they travel around the world, much like I did.
Oh yeah, that really is such a vast range of what is possible. Because when we hear career break, we hear sabbatical, we usually just think of maybe a month off from your corporate job, and then you maybe go somewhere, maybe you stay home a little bit, and then you go back to work. With this whole shift in the workplace, because as we come out of the pandemic and everything that the past couple of years has done to us as human beings, which made us prioritize our well-being, put a bigger value on things like family and friends and travel and self-care. And then we see within companies the concepts of well-being, sustainability, inclusivity being catapulted to the forefront of brands and mission statements. And we're still in this great resignation that's happening as well, which and I always say it's not because there's a lack of jobs. If anything, it's an employee's world right now. People have more options than ever before, and they're choosing not to go back to the workplace. Where do you see the future of sabbaticals and career breaks going? And what are some things that companies need to start paying attention to and thinking about?
Yeah, it's such an interesting time for this topic, right? Because to your point, I think there's so much momentum and so many different angles that are all culminating in this sort of cultural shift. And I think when we look to the future, I feel like it needs to become essential for companies that want to retain really amazing humans. I think it's going to become essential to find ways to give more permission, right, and more access to time off. Now, maybe it's not, a 6-month break, but it might be a 2 or 3 month sabbatical. It might be, a month, every year, like sort of more along the lines of Europe, right? Like more time off and permission to take it without the stigma, right? So I think the stigma is shifting. And I really feel like, even in my time in corporate, it was never enough anymore to just be good at your job. Be good at your job, navigate the politics, be climbing, be looking, always be thinking outside your role to see how you can impact the company, be a change maker, be a thought leader. That's so much pressure. And it's like we take our jobs home with us and it's like all consuming. And I feel like that's not a healthy or realistic pace to sustain. So I feel like, asking more of people to contribute more, to care more, to be more invested, and not giving them time to also invest in their own personal life is just a recipe for disaster. So I feel like incorporating more opportunities for people to actually take time off and invest in their life, but also to sort of like disentangle themselves from I am only as good as my job or I am my work is going to be essential. And so I think people really focusing on like, how do I avoid burnout in the first place is a question we need to answer. And I think there's two approaches, right? There's the coaching aspect of helping individuals and supporting them through that transition. But then there's also working with the companies to develop more empowering programs that support people, like the Sabbatical project that I know has started and helping companies run trial period sabbaticals. But I think this is going to become a more prevalent thing and a more necessary thing as time goes on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I completely agree with all of that. Companies, and I say this all the time in my work in wellness travel, and um, I focus a lot in like vacation policies and what kind of perks are you giving people when it comes to travel relations, and sabbaticals and time off go right underneath there. There's so much research. The U.S. Travel Association, maybe you've seen this in some of your studies. Back in 2016, I want to say 2016, 2017, or 18, maybe, did a big project called Project Time Off. And that has some really interesting information. And that was, right at the height of the burnout epidemic among the workplace. And so people or companies need to reconsider their strategy on how they want to attract and keep valuable talent. But also, if they're going to slap a well-being label on their core values and their company culture, they really need to start thinking about, are they putting action behind the words that they're putting out there? So I know it's going to take a lot of time. I know there are some companies that are doing some really cool things, like Ernst & Young does pretty well with, what they offer their employees and encouraging time off and stuff. So I've read quite a few companies, but those companies had been always doing it. And I'm not really seeing too much change coming out of the pandemic quite yet. More words, not enough action, but I admire what you do. And you have such a bright future in what you're doing, because there's no way down from, for companies and the workplace. It's only going to get more flexibility, more freedom based. People are just going to be asking for more that prioritizes their well-being and their time, right? We're already seeing it. So as we close up here, do you mind sharing with us a fun fact about yourself? It doesn't necessarily have to be travel or business related.
Yeah, of course. I will make this really random. So watermelon is one of my most favorite things to eat. It's my favorite fruit, but actually my favorite way to eat watermelon is with pepper on it, which I found out is not so normal, but I love it. Like, give me a watermelon with pepper on it. But that is a fun fact about me, is that is my favorite way to eat my favorite fruit.
That is funny. I've heard salt. People in my family often eat it with salt. Do you eat it with tahini on it
I have
or
never
just
had it
pepper?
with tahini, but I have had mango and tahini, which is amazing, but I have never tried it on watermelon. Maybe I need to add that to my list.
try it because it has a little bit of that spice in it. I eat tahini on my watermelon, but I thought my dog is here laying on the floor. So when you said watermelon, I thought that she was going to like perk her head up because I was just joking with my fiance recently of how much obsessed my dog is with watermelon. It's weird. It came out of like nowhere, but that's so funny. So I'm like looking down, I'm like, here's watermelon. A wonderful, Katrina. It was so nice having you. Is there anything else you want to share or tell our listeners? And also be sure to let them know where they can find and follow you too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing I want to leave the listeners with is, there's always going to be discomfort, right? There's discomfort in staying still and staying stuck and sort of staying in our safety bubble. There's that discomfort of, I could be doing more. I want to know more. I want to see more of this world. I want to feel more fulfilled. And then there's the discomfort of actually going out and doing it. So if both roads leads to discomfort, right? Choose the road that actually goes where you want to go. Like, be willing to do the discomfort for the thing that matters most. So if that's travel, right? Like, find a plan, start to create, take that step, start to save the money or ask for help, but just take action towards that goal. And don't think that the discomfort is a sign that that this is not meant for you. And then as far as, how people can follow me and learn more about what I do show up on Instagram and share a lot of coachy things there and talk a lot about career breaks. But I also have a free training for anyone that's curious to know more about what a career break is and what it could look like and how would I even go about beginning to think about one and plan it. I have a free training called The Best Break Ever. And so they could check that out as well.
Yeah, definitely. And tell us your Instagram name.
Yeah. So my Instagram is KMcGhee, KMCGHEE coaching.
Perfect. Yes, we're going to link all of that in the show notes, plus that free training that you mentioned. I'm so excited to share that free training. I checked it out when you sent it over to me. It is amazing. You're going to inspire so many people, honestly. Well, again, Katrina, I want to thank you so much for joining us. It was really an inspiration hearing what you do, and I am just so excited for what your future in your work. And everyone, please come check us out on the travelcoachnetwork.com. Be sure to follow us on the Travel Coach Network on Instagram and Facebook. And feel free to join our free Facebook TCN community. The links for all of that is in the show notes as well, along with Katrina's links, as well as there's also a free beginner's guide to travel coaching. If you know anyone who might be interested in travel coaching, please be sure to send them our way to our podcast. We really appreciate it. And until next time, my fellow wanderers, bye for now. Perfect. Thank you